Let's start. It's on time, or it's actually 2 minutes past time, according to my recently changed watch, hopefully. Welcome. I just want to introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. My name is Diane Southard. I have a company called Your DNA Guide, and this is what I do. I travel and I lecture, providing educational information for anyone who has DNA. That's you. And if you've taken a DNA test especially. So I have quick sheets at my table, which is just outside the door here, to help you kind of better understand your test results at MyHeritage, as well as methodologies on how to understand how to use your match list. So we're going to talk about MyHeritage tools today, and then tomorrow I'm going to talk to you about how to use your match list to actually make family history discoveries. So stay tuned for tomorrow as well. And then if you do have questions while I'm speaking, feel free to just raise your hand and let's just answer it right away if you have a question that you feel like applies to the whole group. If it's a question just about your own personal family history, again, I'll be at that table the duration of the conference, and you can just come and ask me your personal questions there. But if it's an idea question that you think everybody has or a lot of people might have, just raise your hand and let's stop and answer it right away. Let's see, what else do you need to know? I've been doing this as long as you can do this, so about 18 years. I've been in the genetic genealogy industry. My foundation is microbiology. That's what my degree is in. And then I worked for the Sorensen Molecular Genealogy Foundation, which was the first effort to create a genetic genealogy database. This was back in 2001. And so it's kind of I've been on this ride since then, so I've seen a lot, and it's exciting to be here to listen this morning to the announcements about where MyHeritage is taking DNA testing. I love that they are all in to this industry. I love that they are listening to us as a community, and they're providing tools that are helpful for us. So I love MyHeritage. I love MyHeritage DNA. So I'm excited that you're here to listen and learn more. So let's jump in. The 5 best tools at MyHeritage DNA. But before we start, I just want to cover very quickly autosomal DNA. That's the kind of DNA that we're testing here at MyHeritage, which means that autosomal DNA means each of us got half of our DNA from our parents. I think a lot of people think, oh, I don't know anything about science. That's not the way my mind works. But you know this, right? Everybody has 2 parents, okay? Even if you don't know who they are, everybody's got them. All right? That means that each of us got half of our DNA from our mom and half of our DNA from our dad. But because our parents got half from their parents, who got half from their parents, who got half from their parents, we look like this. Right? We're kind of this mixed up jumble of our own family history. And you can see it and hear it every time you see someone see a new baby for the first time. You know, they hold up the baby and they're, oh, it's just darling. He's got his mother's nose, and oh, those are his father's ears. And, you know, we pick apart the poor things, right? Because we inherently understand this principle that we all come from our family, and our family history is written in our DNA and in who we are. So I think you probably know a lot more about DNA than you thought you did. So give yourself just a little bit of credit. You know all really that you need to know. Because all you need to know is that our DNA testing companies are taking our DNA and they're analyzing it, and then they're comparing it to other people who've been tested. So that your DNA is just showing the parts of you that are the same as someone else's. And the more parts you have in common, the more related you are. And that's it. So I've just saved you like $400 in a semester tuition to Genetics 101. So you're welcome. Again, my table's back there. You can just pay me on your way out. It's fine. Okay. When we take a DNA test from MyHeritage, we get 2 different kinds of results. We get results that link us to other people, and we get results that link us to places. So 2 different kinds of results that work together to answer our questions about our family history and to fill in the stories that we have. So I'm going to talk about 5 different tools that I really like and use at MyHeritage based on these 2 different kinds of results. So the first tool is the Overview tab. This is a relatively new addition to the MyHeritage DNA website, and I really, really like it because it takes everything you need to know, it puts it on one page, and it makes it straightforward and simple. So I really like it if you want to talk to Aunt Edna, because a lot of us, after having our own DNA tested, we're learning and we're turning to other family members and asking them to test, especially older family members. As was mentioned this morning in the keynote, you've got to test your oldest family members. Why? They have 100% of their DNA, and you only have half of your parents' DNA, 25% of your grandparents. What happens to the rest of it? It's gone. It's lost. It's that courthouse burned down as soon as someone passes away that hasn't had their DNA tested. So I love this overview tab because Aunt Edna is interested in the results. She wants to know what you found, but she doesn't want to know everything, guys. Okay? She really doesn't even want to know more than a minute worth of what you found. So I love this overview tab because you can sit down with your laptop or your phone with Aunt Edna, and you can say, Aunt Edna, here's your ethnicity results. This is what MyHeritage has found about your heritage. And it's very simple. It's one line. There's no crazy words or names or maps or anything. It's just a line. But it's a line that tells a story in color, which I love. So that's easy. You also have this second part of the overview. The next section is her matches. And you can look at Aunt Edna and say, Edna, you have 3 close family members tested. I'm one of them. Our DNA says that we're related. And she'll be, oh, of course, I was there when you were born. She knows that. But there is a level of wow to that information that we didn't tell MyHeritage that Aunt Edna was my aunt, and yet there it is. And so to communicate that so clearly in such a beautiful visual way really resonates with people. Most of the time, this is all Aunt Edna needs to know. This is it. You have spent 5 minutes explaining to her what was found, and she feels like she's contributed. She feels enlightened, and that's enough for right now. Now, hopefully, tomorrow or the next day or next week, she'll say, now about that DNA test. And she'll ask you more. And this is how we convert our family members from having a passive interest in family history to a more active interest in family history. I really think DNA is the key. So when you test your family members, take them to this overview page and show them the overview page and then resist the urge to tell them everything, okay? Just close the computer and be like, thanks again for submitting that DNA test. And hopefully then they will say, wait, there's got to be more than that. Well, actually, there is, okay? But start with the overview. I also like if you scroll down again. Now, for Aunt Edna, maybe you don't need to scroll down any farther in that overview tab. But there are some really fun filters that MyHeritage has placed in the overview tab as well. We're going to go over these filters in a little more detail later. But essentially, as you see here on this tab right here, these are just locations. And you can just click through the different locations where your matches have tested. This is unique to MyHeritage. They tell you where your DNA matches where they live. So for me, I'm from the US, and so when I look at my DNA match list and I see these people who live in all these other places, including, look at that, there are 43 of you that I'm related to. That's interesting. And that's just a click. And maybe I'll never try to figure out how I'm related to my 43 Norwegian cousins. But it's still fascinating for me that you're there. So again, this overview tab is really great for family members who are just a little bit interested, that don't want to be overwhelmed by everything you've learned. I also wanted to mention on the ethnicity estimate section, there's this really great video. And you can just click on right there, play video. It's this beautiful spinning world with all of these different kinds of music that's really entertaining, again, that Aunt Edna will love. So that's also what I consider to be kind of part of the overview. I think you should add it to the overview tab, MyHeritage, because I think it belongs there. All right, that was the first tool. the overview tab. The second tool is what most everybody is coming to DNA testing for. They want to know where they're from. What are my ethnic origins? So again, our goal, I'm assuming as genealogists, is to convert everyone who's testing to find out their ethnicity into somebody who's testing to find their ancestors. This is the way to do it. We have to understand how these work so that when our family members or relatives or coworkers are coming to us and saying, so I did the DNA thing and I don't know what this means. So we're here to learn so that we can tell them what it means and guide them through the results and convert them into family historians. So you'll find that your ethnicity results are based on three main ideas. There are reference populations, what I call fancy math, and time. These are the three factors that affect what you get in that ethnicity section of your results. So let's talk about each of these topics. So let's first talk about foundations. Now, I'm from South Florida, and recently there was a really big hurricane that hit South Florida. It didn't hit my part of South Florida, but the other part. And my husband and my sons went over last weekend to help in the hurricane cleanup. So this is a really great picture that is evidence of the importance of foundations. So these are all foundations along the water here. And you can see this is the only house remaining. There used to be houses on all the rest of those foundations, totally blown down. Here's another picture. Down here where I've pointed in green, these are all foundations as well. And you can see the pieces of the houses just blown right behind. Incredible devastation. But what's the point? The point is foundations. The foundations are still there. So the most important part of an ethnicity estimate at a testing company is their foundation. If their foundation isn't strong, then you're going to get bad estimates. So let's talk about the foundation of the MyHeritage ethnicity project. So it is based on what they're calling the Founder Populations Project. This was a huge effort by MyHeritage to handpick the right people to form the foundation for their populations. Because if you get tested and you're from Norway, if no one from Norway is part of their population foundation, they're not going to be able to tell you that you're from Norway, right? So what they did is the Founder Population Project surveyed their 90 million users, and they looked through the family trees of their users, and they said, we need people from everywhere so that we can build a strong foundation for this ethnicity estimate. And they handpicked maybe some of you and said, these are the people that, based on their family history, best represent their area. And they were tested to represent their people, their culture, their location. That is what the Founder Population Project is made up of. 5,000 hand-picked people who lived and who had family history, very deep family history, in a very particular location. So that's the foundation of this population group that MyHeritage is using. So if we were to break this up by category, how many different foundation populations do they have? You can see here that there are 13 European foundation populations. We've got 10 in Africa, 3 in America, 11 in Asia, 2 in the Middle East, and 3 in Oceania. But of course, this isn't the end. MyHeritage is constantly working on improving this, and these numbers will go up. But right now, unique to MyHeritage are these populations. These are population groups that are the foundation populations only in MyHeritage. You can't get these populations from other companies. So you can see definitely very well represented are the Jewish populations. All other genetic genealogy companies have one Jewish category. Well, one other one has another one, but most of them just have one, Ashkenazi Jewish. That's it. But you can see MyHeritage is very well represented with all of their other Jewish population categories. They also have, I talked to a lady the other day who has ancestry in this Inuit section, and she was shocked that it came up in MyHeritage because, of course, she hadn't seen it in any other company. Why? Because other companies don't have a foundation population of the Inuit. So understanding where the foundation populations are in MyHeritage helps you understand your results. If you come from a very small community somewhere, and MyHeritage hasn't tested your community, they're not going to be able to tell you you're from there. So there's a lot of people with MyHeritage shirts walking around right now. So if you want your population represented, just, put it in someone's ear. Let them know that that's the population you want to see in their next update. So that's reference populations. Does anybody have any questions about the Foundation Project at MyHeritage? Or yes, sir.
What about the indigenous people in Australia?
So indigenous people in Australia. So you saw on my little map, there's 3 from Oceania. So we're lacking there, right? We need those people to volunteer, or we need to find them and gather them to be tested. I agree. So did you hear that? He wants indigenous people from Australia. Yes, ma'am. Right, so she's saying she's from New Zealand, but how recently was New Zealand settled? Like yesterday, right? Okay, so that's going to come up in our timing. Wait for that. Yes? Native Americans. So there are Native American populations represented in the MyHeritage database. There are 3. I can't remember what they are right now, but you can see that on their website. You can see all of the Native American populations they've tested. But yes, that's another area where there's lots and lots of Native people that are not represented yet. One more question, yes.
Can I ask about UK? This is such an appalling title because it's lots of different countries. It's really Great Britain, but we're all different ethnical backgrounds. And if you put it under UK, it doesn't actually give a very clear picture. How do you deal with it?
Right, so she's saying we label the UK, and it's this huge place that has a lot of different people and a lot of different cultures, and that's part of the future timeline for sure, is to be able to take that big category and slice it up into much smaller categories, and that will happen in the future. But for now, the reality is people that live in that area have very similar genetics. So it takes a lot of fancy math that we're going to talk about next to help kind of sift those out.
I don't mean modern ethnics. I mean background, like Celtic, English.
Right, but similar problem. So we'll talk about that in just a second. Yes, sir.
Yeah, just because for the UK there's actually English, and you have Scottish and Welsh.
Right.
So my daily results have a little bit of English and a little separate for Scottish and Welsh. There's actually already some specific results.
Right, so for some categories like Irish, Scottish, and Welsh, there are separate distinctions, but let me go over this part. It will help. So there's this problem with category overlap, and there's this problem with migrations, right? So to try to help us better understand how it works, we're going to do this little analogy. I really like analogies, and I really like pictures. So these are ethnicity result food trucks. All right, so really trying to determine where your ancestors are from is like trying to determine where did B have dinner, okay? Was she at the burger place or the taco joint, all right? Now, initially, you might be thinking, well, burgers and tacos are very different. It should be very easy to find out where she went. And yet, if you look at a taco and a burger, and you start breaking them down into parts, they're appallingly similar, okay? So they both have lettuce, they both have tomato, they both have ground beef, they both have cheese. So if you're just looking at the components and you're not looking at them assembled, it's really hard to tell the difference. This is what our testing companies have. They have components. They don't have the full burger, right? So we call these components SNPs. All right? This is what the company looks at. They look at SNPs. Now, what is a SNP? A SNP is just a single change in your DNA. It's one difference between you and someone else. So we represent these SNPs by these dots up here. Some of our SNPs represent location. They tell the company where we're from. Other SNPs link us to other people, help us to make cousin connections. And some SNPs have to do with our health. So there's lots of different kinds of SNPs. So our companies have to choose the SNPs that they want to look at that are going to give them the information they want, and then they have to analyze them. So that's where our reference populations come in. So what MyHeritage needs is a bunch of people that they know ate burgers. Okay? And you have to survey them. And we survey them by testing their DNA. Like right as they're coming out of the restaurant. Swab. Swab. You have to wait a half hour before you eat, right? But we'll say that our reference population data tells us that people who ate burgers are more likely to have had ketchup than they are to have tomatoes. Now, are ketchup and tomatoes kind of the same thing? Yeah, right? That's the thing about these SNPs. They're related to each other. There's very, very fine lines. And our companies have to figure that out. And they do that with fancy math, like really fancy math. All right? So here's our reference population for the burger joint. Most people have ketchup versus tomatoes. Here at the taco joint, our reference populations are the opposite. Most people who had tacos had tomatoes, but there are still some who had ketchup. I don't know. People are strange. They put ketchup on a lot of things. All right? I don't know why they're putting ketchup on their tacos, but they're doing it. All right? Not as often, but they're still doing it. So now that we have our reference population data, we know what each reference population looks like. We can then look at B's DNA. And we ask, what does B look like? Well, she has 2 ketchups. All right? She gets 2 because you get 1 from your mom and 1 from your dad. Okay? Now, when we see B's DNA that she has 2 ketchups, we might be tempted to say, oh, well, she definitely had a burger. Because it's so much more likely that people with ketchup went to the burger joint. But that's the thing. We can't say that. That's where this fancy math comes in. The fancy math says, okay, it's more likely that she ate a burger, but it's still possible that she had a taco. Even with 2 ketchups, still possible she had a taco. They do this probability thing 400,000 times. Okay? To try to figure out where in the world you had dinner. So this is complicated. So when you look at your ethnicity results and you're seeing places that you don't recognize, or you're seeing too much percentage of a place you do recognize, it's probably because of all of this that's going on. It's a lot of math. It's a lot of probabilities. It's a lot of work. And our companies will keep getting better at this. And MyHeritage is actively pursuing new foundation population groups to improve the information that we have. And they're improving their algorithms. The more people that test, the better they can get at this. So be patient with your results and understand it's a complicated math problem, basically. So we talked about reference populations. We talked about fancy math. Let's talk also about timing. Another analogy. Just can't help it. So this is my mango theory. If you wanted to, today in Oslo, could you purchase a mango? Oh, sir, did you have a question?
Yeah, one question. Most of all, I heard and see discussions about, say, 3 generations, 100 years, 6 generations, roughly 200 years, while we have 40, 50 generations above. And how's that connection?
So he's asking, I think, that, right, that there's all of these generation ranges, and how far back are we talking about our history? Is that what your question? Yeah, so that's, we go so far back, right, in history. Right, so we all go back to a common place, right? So that's exactly what we're talking about, is time. So it depends a lot on when you're asking, right? So if you wanted to today, could you buy a mango in Oslo? Isn't it amazing? Global economy, right? Okay, but did it grow here? Yeah, no. I actually looked this up on the internet. Do you know where the #1 producer of mangoes that come into Oslo come from? It's Spain. Spain, number 1 importer. The next one is Holland, number 2, by the way, just FYI. Spain. All right, so let's say our mango that's currently in our grocery store in Oslo was in Spain on a tree 2 weeks ago. Now, I didn't look up timing. I kind of made this part up, but you'll get the picture. So in Spain, 2 weeks ago, our mango was on a tree. Can we all agree that at that time it is a Spanish mango? All right. Now, somebody picks it off the tree, right, and they put it on a truck. And the truck was in Brussels 5 days ago, headed north. So at that point, whose mango is it? Still Spanish? Belgian? Right? Okay, well then it gets on a boat, and it's traveling through the North Sea 2 days ago. Who does the North Sea belong to? Right? You see how complicated this is getting? So finally, when it comes here to Oslo, it's at the Kiwi market. We went there the other day. It's my husband and I. It's our favorite thing to do when we travel. We just go to the grocery store and just walk through the aisles and throw stuff in our basket to try. Mostly candy. I know. But it's really fun. So we went to the Kiwi market. So at this point now, when we see this mango in the Kiwi market, is this a Norwegian mango? Somebody says it's still Spanish. Somebody's like, oh, sure, of course it is. So if it's not, at what point does it become, or ever, a Norwegian mango? When you eat it. Yes, right? When you eat it, then it's here, right? So this is the problem. It's so difficult to tell you where you're from without also telling you when you were there. Because if we're talking about you, the mango, 2 weeks ago, you're clearly Spanish. But maybe that is 50 generations ago. Do you really want to know where you were 50 generations ago? Or are you more interested in where you were 5 generations ago? So it makes a big difference when you're asking. So for the most part, in very, very, very simple terms, what MyHeritage is doing is they're not just looking at your mango. They're also looking at the DNA that's around your mango. If your mango was from Spain, it would be in a certain marketplace next to certain other kinds of produce that you find only in Spain. Where here, it's going to be next to apples and oranges that you get from your neighboring regions, right? So one of the things that MyHeritage is doing is improving their algorithms so that they're not just looking at only the mango, but they're looking at everything around it. That will improve our ethnicity results. Something you can do to try to figure out which of your locations that are listed in your ethnicity are recent and which are more distant is just clicking this little button on your MyHeritage results. It says, show events from your family tree. And it shows all of the places that I have my family. So if one of those places is showing up, like, for example, right here in that huge nebulous UK category, that makes sense to me. But these other locations, see, I've got one down here, but these kind of Eastern European locations where I don't really have anyone right now, those are likely more distant. So if you see places that you don't recognize, it's probably a timing thing. You might actually be from there, but when? And it could be before genealogical time. You might not ever find a name associated with that place in your family tree. So that is ethnicity results. My next tool that we talked about a little bit earlier were smart matches, which I just consider to be cheating, right? I mean, people say cheating is bad. It's not bad. It gets you the answer quickly. Let's cheat just a little bit here. So smart matches work only if I've posted my family tree information on MyHeritage, and so has my match. So right here on my match page, it's going to tell me that with this individual, MyHeritage has already done the work for me. They looked through my family tree. They looked through my match's family tree. They see people that are the same. Now, on MyHeritage, they're going to show me everybody that's the same in our tree, not just my direct line ancestors, but everybody in our family tree that matches. So be careful for that. A lot of people think that they have to be direct line ancestors in the smart matches. They're everybody that we match. So you can see here, this is not a direct line ancestor, and this is what you're looking for. this person has new information that I didn't have. And I found them through a DNA match. Also, hopefully, you'll be able to identify your common ancestor. This would be a direct line ancestor that both of you share. And that's the goal, at least in my mind, of DNA testing, is to find the common ancestor with the person that shows up on your match page. So use the Smart Match tool, but be careful with it, because a smart match just means that MyHeritage sees the same person in your tree as in somebody else's tree. If you guys are both wrong, MyHeritage can't see that. So all it is a clue. It's a hint. It's a cheat. But if you have the wrong person in your tree, they have the wrong person in their tree, it doesn't make it right. Two wrongs don't make it right. That's what my grandma said. So be careful. These are hints, but you need to actually do the family history work. You need to be sure that the documentation is there for you and for your match. So it's a great place to start, but make sure you're actually doing all the double checking. My next favorite tool are the filters. So this is another recent addition to MyHeritage, this filter menu. And you should always start out by understanding the surnames in your family tree. So if you go all the way back out here to your 3 times great-grandparents, this pink line, you have 32 ancestors. Now, I don't know all 32 of my ancestors. Maybe you do. But all 32 of those people should have 32 different surnames. Now, that's a lot of surnames. So writing down the surnames that are in your tree helps you better identify the surnames in someone else's tree. Because these 32 ancestors are making you 4th cousins. All of their descendants are going to be your 4th cousins. So that huge long list of 4th cousins you have on MyHeritage, these are your connecting ancestors. So understanding your own surnames is your first step to understanding how you're connected. So if you want to, you can click on the All Tree Details section up here, and you click right here on Has a Shared Surname. And that's going to sort individuals that MyHeritage sees in your match list that have surnames that are the same as the one you searched for. So what's especially interesting about matches like this one is that they have a surname that's in my tree, but there's no smart match. That means that MyHeritage has looked through my tree, looked through my matches tree. They don't see the same ancestor, but there are ancestors with my surname. These are your best matches. These people could help me fill in my blank on my Griggs line because we don't yet have a shared ancestor listed, but our DNA says one exists. So looking for individuals that share surnames but aren't smart matches can be your best clues. Yes, ma'am. All the female surnames too. Male and female surnames, both. Absolutely, because autosomal DNA is not limited to one line. So you have everybody. Yeah. Was there another question over here? Yes, sir.
There is no sure that through the surnames you are right to see that the DNA is not similar.
Right, they don't have to be. Absolutely. The surname is just a clue. So starting searching by surname, and you find a group of people, and then you have to do genealogy to figure out if you're actually connected, especially really common surnames. You're going to find a lot of matches that don't really connect with you there. Right? Yes?
And in Sweden, Norway, we have a big problem. We didn't have search.
Right. And if you're in Scandinavia, then maybe surname searching isn't the best route. So you want to go to shared locations, which was announced this morning. Thanks a lot for making me update this slide at the last second. But this is really exciting, exactly for the purpose we were just mentioning. For those of you whose surnames don't matter because you're either Scandinavian or you're adopted or whatever, you don't have a surname to search with, location becomes key. Again, you think you don't know that much about science, but you know that in order for 2 people to share a common ancestor, they have to be in the same place at the same time for at least a short amount of time, right, to make this possible. So surnames can lie, they can change. Location is everything. So use this new tool from MyHeritage and search by location. So let's talk about these filters again and how we can use them in combination with each other. Because one of the great powers at MyHeritage is you can combine these filters, layer them on top of each other to learn more about your matches. So this is a consultation I did. So I do online consultations with people all over the world. We get online and we talk about their DNA test results and I help them walk through them. So this was a lady I was talking with, and her ancestor, George, was born in Greece. And he immigrated to the United States where he married a Norwegian lady, and they moved to Canada and had 5 kids, and then he moved to California and left his family because, well, California had nicer weather. At least that was the rumor. All right, but she wanted to know more about this line from Greece. So we've got George. This was her ancestor, and he had at least one brother who also came to the U.S. or Canada. George's parents, she had their names. So what can she do? What can DNA do to help her with this situation? As far as contact with the family in Greece, there's none. She thinks there's a brother in the U.S. or Canada, but wasn't sure. How does she move forward? What she needs to find is somebody living in Greece who shares DNA with her. Because that person most likely is related to this one line. She has one Greek line. So if she can find a DNA match living in Greece, that person most likely is related to this family somehow. And that's the power of the MyHeritage filter. You can just click on this button. She has 4 DNA matches born in Greece. So we click on that. And that shows us this is her best match, a 3rd to 5th cousin. But if you could see his picture, he's pretty young. So he looks like he's maybe in his early 20s. So he's definitely, I'm thinking like a 2nd cousin twice removed even from her. She's a little bit older. So there's a lot of great possibilities for relationship here. So here's this guy currently living in Greece. So we can also find these are all 4 of the matches living in Greece. So these are more distant for sure. So this is the one that we would want to focus on. This is where we would put our effort and our energy here. We can also use the MyHeritage filters to look at her own ethnicity. And this is that time and place thing that we were talking about. Because her grandfather married a Norwegian lady, and then they had kids, his Greek DNA had already been reduced by half by the time it got to her grandparent. And then by half again and by half again. So she actually did not come up with any Greek DNA in her ethnicity results, even though George, her ancestor, was clearly born in Greece. So this is just a case of, again, if she had been able to test an older generation, it probably still would have been there. But in the ethnicity filter, even though she doesn't have any percentage of Greece, she has 139 matches who also have percentages from Greece. Now, these people weren't born there, but their ethnicity says they come from there. So what you can do is you can click on that 139, or you can go to your match page. You can filter by people who have ethnicity from Greece and people who were born in Canada or the U.S. Remember that brother? This is how you look for descendants of him. His descendants aren't still going to be in Greece. They're going to be wherever they move to. So she can now filter by people who have Greek ethnicity in their DNA and people who live in Canada or the United States. So here's her Canadian matches, a 3rd to distant cousin, and here's her United States best match. Both of them decent matches within the range to be a 4th cousin or so to her, which is what we would expect given the relationship of this brother to her ancestor. So that's how you layer the filters at MyHeritage to find the matches that are going to be the most helpful to you in whatever research goal that you have. My favorite tool is the Shared Matches tool. Now, they talked about this a little bit earlier. The Shared Matches tool works like this. When you get your match list, it's you versus the database. You and everybody. So we want to filter that database a little bit by taking you and one other match. You and one other match, and we ask the database, show me people who are sharing DNA with just me and one other match. And that resulting list is your shared matches. What your goal is, and what we're going to talk about tomorrow, is how to make a network like this out of your shared matches to hopefully help you discover how you share an ancestor. I also really like the MyHeritage Shared Matches tool, the only company that's doing it this way, where they're showing me my match, and they're showing not just my relationship to the match, which I can see on my match list, but they're showing me my match's relationship to the new match, which can be really helpful. It's helpful to know if this is my match's sister or brother or cousin, as opposed to my fourth cousin or whatever. It helps you better picture and understand the relationships of people on your match list to each other, so you can better know how you're related to them. And again, we're going to talk about that a lot more tomorrow. So it's basically you and one match, and you're taking all the information that you had about how you're related to these people, and you're able to see how your match is also related to these people. It's a very, very powerful way to look at your matches to help you figure out relationships. Theoretically, then, to help you connect to a common ancestral couple between you and your shared matches. So, those were the top 5 tools: the Overview tab, the Ethnic Origins tab, the Smart Matches, the Filters, and the Shared Matches. So, if you don't get into anything else, if you can just take a look at these tools, you'll be farther along in your MyHeritage journey than hopefully you were 30 minutes ago. And I guarantee that there are things to be discovered. They're waiting for you in your match list if you just know how to use the tools that MyHeritage is providing for you. There's a lot of interesting information that you can discover and hopefully find an ancestor or two. So we have a few minutes for questions. I wanted to make sure I left you time. They're probably got more snacks out there. Do you feel like they're feeding us constantly? I'm going to gain like 20 pounds in 2 days, but it's all wonderful and delicious. So I want to give you a chance to go out and do that if you want to. But if you have questions, we can do that too if you want. That would be fun. I had a little explanation about the Chromosome Browser. If you want to see that, I know that he went over it a couple lectures ago. Mine's in pictures if you want to see it. Do you want to see it in pictures? Okay. Feel free to go, though. Like, leave if you want to leave. You're not going to hurt anyone's feelings. This was my bonus tool. I just wasn't sure if I was going to have time for it or not. So there's a lot of ways to get to the Chromosome Browser at MyHeritage. So he mentioned on that Shared Matches tool, you can click on this little button. This is at the bottom of each match list. You can click on the Chromosome Browser from the main menu. A lot of ways to get there. But essentially, a chromosome browser is just a way to visualize the DNA that you're sharing with someone else. So along the side here, these are the numbers of chromosomes. So you have 22 pairs of chromosomes, and they're listed here along the side. In purple are going to be the pieces of DNA you're sharing with that one person. These are shared pieces of DNA. And theoretically, if you know your common ancestor with this person, these pieces of DNA came from them. Isn't that amazing? Doesn't that just blow your mind that we can see the DNA we inherited from our grandparents or great-grandparents? You know you're connected to them, right? You know it. But to see it in a physical, tangible way, amazing. All right, chromosome browsers are amazing. Okay. This is the big Chromosome Browser tool where you can compare chromosomes of multiple matches, okay, up to 7 matches. So again, it's just everybody gets their own line and their own color. So here's this guy, he's orange. So all the orange pieces are from him and all these others are from somebody else. What he was talking about earlier are a tool that MyHeritage calls triangulated groups. So that's when you see this little box around the chromosome. It means that this person and this person are sharing the same piece of DNA. So let's look at how that works. So here's person 1 at chromosome 1. This is the chromosome maybe that he got from his dad and this one from his mom. So you see how everybody has 2 pairs of chromosomes, right? But in the chromosome browser, we see everything on one line. So sometimes what happens is that this piece of DNA is on the blue chromosome for this person, but on the purple chromosome for this person, but the piece that they're sharing is lining up. And so you might think, oh, well, there's a shared piece of DNA. But it's not shared. It's in the same place, but it's on 2 different chromosomes. That is not a triangulated group. A triangulated group is when the same chromosome is sharing in the same place. This would be a true triangulated group. You'll see a lot of triangulated groups for close relatives because we share a lot of the same DNA. When you try to use triangulated groups for more distant relatives like 4th cousins, it gets really tricky and it can sometimes be misleading. Sometimes you're going to share triangulated groups with people not because you actually share a recent common ancestor, but because you're all from Ireland and you have a very Irish piece of DNA. So if you see triangulated groups in more distant cousins like 4th or 5th or distant cousins, those are more likely there because of a shared population rather than a situation like this where you have a shared grandfather or great-grandfather. So be careful using triangulated groups, but they can be an interesting way to view your matches. And that really is the end of everything I was going to tell you. So again, if you have more questions, I'm going to let you go, and then I'll just head right out to my table, and if you have questions, we can talk to them there, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for coming.